we're sitting in my kitchen in my apartment, and we're just chatting about what Bitcoin means to us. And we got to words like freedom and all of that. And then we said, like, okay, but how does the world where freedom is around us, how does it look like? And we realized it's a world where people cooperate on a much better level. There's a much more harmony and peace because governments cannot just print money infinitely and finance wars and stuff. So, and there is a word in English, kind of archaic word, not used very much, and that's amity, which translates into fellowship, friendship, and harmony. And we realized that Bitcoin is a technology that can get us to the world of friendship and fellowship, to the world of amity, to the age of amity. So we put together these words, and that's how Amity Age was created.
Okay. Glad we were able to pull Dusan into the studio with us to talk about the exciting things that he's got going there in Roatan. You just finished a 2-day workshop that you were doing here?
Yeah, 2-day Bitcoin
Educators
Academy. Okay. Exactly.
And where did the idea, is this something that you do outside of this, or was this something you did specifically for the people here in El Salvador, or where did the idea come about?
I piloted it last week in Slovakia. It was a project that I had in my mind for some time to help educators get better at educating the Bitcoiners who are passionate for Bitcoin and they would love to spread it across the globe, like how to get better at spreading the knowledge, how to understand the other party, how to use analogies, how to bust Bitcoin myths, how to handle objections. So all of these kind of soft skills of an educator, we're practicing for 2 days here.
Okay, so you guys weren't just talking about Bitcoin specific things.
No.
It was
really? very specific for educators. So there were 2 girls actually from Volcano Energy, who are marketers. They're not educators specifically, but marketing is also a form of education. So we were also chatting how to apply everything we learned into marketing as well, like how to show people where's the problem and what might be the solution, where where Bitcoin can get them. So it was like a lot of mental frameworks and models that you can not only apply to Bitcoin education, but basically to any education. And what I say, even better, to relationships, to raising your kids. So I'm applying a bunch of that to my own relationship with my girlfriend. So and it's basically how to get better at communication in general and how to listen to the other party and so on. That was the whole 2 days experience.
Okay. So I know there was some people from our team, from the Bitcoin Beach team. The Me Premier Bitcoin had a few people there.
Yeah.
Volcano,
Berlin.
Bitcoin Berlin, Volcano Energy. Am I missing anyone?
I think those 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody seemed very excited and impressed. You know, I came in on the tail end after you guys had done 2 full days. Usually at that point people are like, I'm ready to go home. But everybody seemed pumped. They were excited and they didn't seem bored at all. So however you did it, it seemed to be energizing for them.
Thank you. And I put a lot of work into it, and I'm super happy that it worked, and I hope that people are gonna spread the knowledge and educate other peoples in those things as well. So it was very intense. We had 10 hours a day basically, with 1 hour for lunch, but we started at 8 a.m. and we were finishing at almost 6 p.m. So it was very, very intense, and big credit to everybody who participated, and a huge thanks to you and your team for allowing this to happen. So we chatted with Roman in Adopting Bitcoin, and I proposed this idea to him. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's find a time. But we were starting to chat January before going to Roatan. I was like, maybe I'm going to have a baby at that week. I'm not sure. I'm like, Roman, let's try to figure it out. He was like, okay, let's do it. So
he had his baby last night.
Yes, actually, he's 1 day father right now. That's brilliant.
So is this connected to Amity Age is the name of your company, correct?
Amity
Am I
Age.
saying that right?
Exactly.
So I'm curious, first off, where that name comes from, but then also how this connects with the broader vision of what you guys are doing. And is this something that other people that are interested in having this type of training can contact you for. So
definitely. So where the name comes from, when me and my colleague Gabriel were sitting together like 3 years ago when we were putting together the company, we were sitting in my kitchen in my apartment and we're just chatting about what Bitcoin means to us. And we, of course, we got to words like freedom and all of that. And then we said, like, okay, but how does the world where freedom is around us, how does it look like? And we realized it's a world where people cooperate on a much better level. There's a much more harmony and peace because governments cannot just print money infinitely and finance wars and stuff. So, and there is a word in English, kind of archaic word, not used very much, and that's amity, which translates into fellowship, friendship, and harmony. And we realized that Bitcoin is a technology that can get us to the world of friendship and fellowship, to the world of amity, to the age of amity. So we put together these words, and that's how Amity Age was created. Okay. And then you see the little girl. So who that is? That's Amity Nakamoto, the granddaughter of Satoshi. Because Satoshi disappeared, he left us with an amazing tool, and right now we are the ones who should take the tool and spread it around the world. So that's the role of Amity Nakamoto, to be the holder of this torch of knowledge and help people get them educated on Bitcoin. So we kind of created this character that will lead people on this journey. So that's how Amity was born.
Love it.
And the program, the Educators Academy, that's something I would like to put much more effort into. It's a very fresh thing in my mind, and we piloted it in Slovakia and here as well. Because the vision that we have, or the mission of Amity Age, is to welcome 100 million people in the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Why 100 million? Because we wanted to put a number that's crazy big enough to think differently. And it's also, we wanted to say that we want to educate as many people as there are Satoshis in one Bitcoin. That's why 100 million. And how to achieve it, I cannot imagine achieving it ourselves. It's impossible. So we would like to help others get better in education, get better in what they love to do, or maybe they feel like they love Bitcoin and they are figuring out what to do in Bitcoin. And if they believe in education, maybe that's the thing that they want to pursue. But maybe they're afraid to speak out. Maybe they're afraid to share their message, to create content. And this program should help them to not be afraid to do it and have the tools of how to do it. So the idea is to help new Bitcoin educators get into the space, get them excited, get them the tools, get them the knowledge, and get to the welcome 100 million people in the Bitcoin rabbit hole.
I love it. Curious as to how is that financed? How is that? Is this set up as a for-profit company? Is it a nonprofit that you guys are supported through donations, or how does that work?
So my background is in teaching. So I used to teach mathematics, physics, and English. And I used to be part of a couple of student nonprofit organizations. We also started in 2017. Maybe you heard about the project Parallel Polis from Czech Republic.
No.
It was the first crypto-only cafeteria in the world. At the time, there was no Lightning Network, so you needed to use Litecoin for small transactions and coffees. So
yes, I think yes, I have.
So maybe you heard about it in Prague.
Yeah.
And we set the same partner company or nonprofit in Bratislava. So I got an experience from nonprofits and doing education on Bitcoin where you depend on donations. And it was very exhausting. We started as a team of 30 people and we ended up as a team of 5 because people volunteers just burned out.
Yeah.
So when we were thinking with Gabriel, like, okay, let's do the education, I was thinking like, okay, how to do it so that we don't need to depend on donations. We can be self-sustained. And at the time, Gabriel's mother-in-law, she owned a power plant in Slovakia, kind of a small one, biogas. So we were it was a funny thing because we were turning cow shit into Bitcoin. So we were mining, we started like, let's explore if we can mine in this power plant and maybe we can use the proceeds to finance education. So at the time I was doing...
But she had this existing way prior to even Bitcoin's
Exactly. She was doing it for like 10 years.
Okay.
She was the first woman in Slovakia to start a power plant. So she was like a very visionary...
And what, how much power are we talking about?
Very small, like 600-700 kilowatts.
So in
less than a megawatt.
How many homes with that power?
In terms of homes, that's a tough question. I don't know how much.
I'm just trying to get a frame of reference that people would be able to relate to.
So if Bitcoiners are listening, so regular Antminer, air-cooled S19 consumes like 3 kilowatts per hour. So you can run, let's say, 200, 250 of the miners at one spot. But the funny thing is, like,
and who were her customers? I'm very curious about this. Like, who were her customers prior to it being used for Bitcoin mining?
She was selling basically to the grid. So it was a power plant. You were turning, corn and cow shit into methane, burning the methane, putting it back to the grid. And it was in a very remote area in Slovakia. So we went to her and we like, can we do this? And she was like, yeah, guys, I like it. She's very visionary. She's very technological oriented. So she's like, yeah, come and do the Bitcoin mining. And at the time, I was doing already Bitcoin education. I had my clients that I was helping setting up Trezors and wallets. So I just sent them a message like, guys, we're going to do some Bitcoin mining. We have a container. And if you want, you can buy machines. We will be hosting it for you. And in just like 3 weeks, we filled up the whole container. I'm like, what the heck? And then they have, like, the guy who helped her to maintain the power plant, he had another power plant in a different location. So we set up a new container at that location and fill it up as well in like maybe a month or two.
So what is the cost of power from those plants?
This was in 2000, like 3 years ago, 2021, and we were paying like 8 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a little high for now, right? For the mining?
Yeah.
That's kind of borderline if you can make it or not.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, at the time, we started actually very close to when the difficulty drop after China came in. So it was excellent. The price of Bitcoin was like 35,000 or even almost 40. The difficulty was like, 20% of today. And it was like even less, I think. So it was a great time at the time. We thought like
we're geniuses.
And then the price was going down, the difficulty. I was like, oh my God, what did we started here? But we didn't give up. We were kind of figuring out how to do it better. And then sadly, in Europe, the price of electricity went super high because of the Russia and Nord Stream, all of that. Then the war came in, and suddenly they called us from the power plant and told, like, guys, there is something called economic mobilization, which means that we can turn you off anytime because the government can call us and tell us, like, you need to deliver to the grid.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's pretty risky. So what to do? Okay, we moved to Czech Republic because it wasn't there yet. And it took us maybe like a month to set everything up. We spent like $50,000 just for the infrastructure, for everything and moving it out. And after like 2 months, we just turned off the machines because we were just running at a cost and even lower. I was like, oh, damn.
So were you just buying from just the grid in Czech Republic, or did you have a similar type
Similar
system?
setup, but if you're competing with the grid, you cannot. They will not give you such a low price because you're not consuming megawatts and megawatts. So we were like a little bit lower than the grid, but in the end, they were like, guys, we don't care. We either sell to you or to the grid. You want this price, you need to go higher and so on. So it was a tough times, but at the time I was already setting my residency in Paraguay because of the tax purposes and all of the stuff. Just when I saw what's happening with the war and COVID and restrictions, I was like, okay, I want to be able to leave the country if shit hits the fan. So I set up the residency and suddenly I was like, wow, Paraguay is interesting. It's the largest electricity exporter in the world. 100% is hydro, and there are miners like coming in. So let's explore.
And it's super cheap, right?
And yeah, at the time it was cheaper than right now. Like the base price was like 3.5, like almost 4 cents, which is good. Right now it growed a little bit, but it was still like it was perfect. So we were like, okay, let's explore it. So after a couple of months, like we found like great partners there that we partnered up with. They have the largest power plant, the largest farm there. And we moved all the machines from Slovakia and Czech Republic. And last year in August, we turned on all the machines. And right now we are operating close to 5 megawatts. Nothing super huge, but pretty okay. It's a tough business. All the people who are listening and doing mining, they know what I'm talking about. We were expecting that it's going to be easy, like just a miner into a plug and you're just earning Bitcoin. If it would be like that, I would be super happy. And this helps us sustain the education activity. So this is one of the business models, the only one we have. And we will be exploring like if we can make the academy itself sustainable, which is the ideal scenario, but it maybe take us a year, 2 or 3.
Yeah. So it's not, right now, the model's not necessarily that, it's still kind of a nonprofit in a sense. It's just you have a for-profit entity yourself that's funding it. So.
But the academy part or the education part is not even nonprofit. It's like at a loss currently.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like you have an economic entity that's basically your one donor that's supporting the entity. Okay. Yeah, it's because it is tough. It's tough. Education is so needed.
Oh yeah.
But most people don't realize how much they need it, so they're not going to pay for it up front, or it's challenging to charge enough that you could actually make it profitable. So
that's the thing. So this is the current way, and I see that once people realize that it's important thing that they are willing to donate a little bit, but you cannot sustain if you want to have like a proper teacher, kind of full time, and you need to pay salaries. You want to pay salaries for so that people are doing this full time and they don't need to like go to work there and then just a couple of hours maybe do some education. I would like them to like just dive deep into it and just be inside of Bitcoin and do the education. So you need to pay salaries, you need to get the money somehow. So that's the tough part.
So you're figuring that out. So I want to dive into that. I want to go down a rabbit hole a little bit here because I'm curious about the mining component and your opinion on some of the prospective ventures here in El Salvador that they're talking about doing. From my perspective, energy is crazy expensive in El Salvador. The climate's warm. It just doesn't make sense to mine here. But there appears to be some big projects in play, and they, people that I really respect and know much more about it than me. So they obviously have a plan to make it profitable. But how would you view mining in El Salvador, and what do you think from what you've heard so far?
I'm a big believer in geothermal. Actually, we are exploring this way in Slovakia as well, but it's very expensive to just put it into place. Then take some time to really like get it to all the capacity. So we actually didn't want to leave Slovakia, so we were exploring hydro, solar, geothermal, even nuclear. We actually had a call with a company that's building small modular reactors. Like if they plan or if it's possible to have this reactor in Europe, and they just laughed us out. Like, guys, like your regulation sucks. Like it's never going to be in Europe. So how
about El Salvador?
That's a different story. That might be interesting.
Because electricity costs are insane in El Salvador. That's and
how much is it actually?
I mean, I think it's like, I think I pay like 30 cents a kilowatt hour. And, that's obviously at residential level, but that's a lot. I mean, our electric bill is insane. I won't even say what it is because I'd be embarrassed. I mean, it's more than the average family makes here in a month.
That's crazy. On Roatan, we have the same problem. It's like 40 cents per kilowatt hour. Yeah. So it's insane. I'm just sweating because I don't want to just turn on the AC.
Yeah, I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to that. I like to have my AC. During the day, I'm fine, but at night, I just can't sleep without it.
I got it.
So, but I know Naib's been very focused on this. He understands for a lot of businesses, that's very important, the cost of power. And so they've brought hydro on. They have a big natural gas, the liquefied natural gas plant that was brought online. So they've done a lot of things to bring down. So prices are definitely cheaper than they used to be, but it still has a long way to go. So that's why I'm curious. I mean, I would love to see nuclear come in here. Even what you were talking about, I'm very curious to using cow dung and corn husks. That stuff that's available here in El Salvador and labor's cheap. Is that something that they could be doing? So
I mean, this is very interesting. Like in Slovakia, it's kind of big. There were some subsidies for that, but about like 30 or 50 of these power plants like popped up. They cannot be very huge. They are very hard to maintain. Like it's a bunch of chemistry and alchemy, but you can really use resources that sometimes they even pay you to take it.
Yeah.
Because they would need to pay somebody to like drop it out. So they pay you to even like, you can use the resource and you don't need to pay for it anymore. So it's pretty interesting to explore.
Well, there's a number of people that have even come down and have contacted us and we've met with that have these ideas to do different plants that burn tires or waste, different things. But you're the first person I've talked to who actually has like seen a plant that's up and running. Because every time they start, I'm just like, that all sounds like too good to be true. So if it's that easy, why isn't everybody doing it? So.
It works, but it's very tough to maintain. Like you need to have people who know what they're doing. And the problem is with these plants is like once you mess it up, once you mess up the chemistry and like the bacteria kind of dies out there, just to start it again, it takes weeks. So you need to like, and even if you're starting the power plant, it takes even months to prepare the cocktail of everything in such a good way that it produces enough methane to run it. So that's a tough business, very, very tough business. A lot of actually of these power plants went bankrupt in Slovakia because the people were like, oh, I have a donation for a power plant. Excellent. I'm going to be selling power to the government, easy money. They went like they sometimes didn't start, or they went bankrupt in a year because they just couldn't handle that. But getting back to the nuclear and in Salvador, or not nuclear, but the volcanic. So I'm a big believer in that because it's very like a constant stream of power, which you cannot achieve with solar and wind. So solar and wind currently for mining are not the best sources because there is a huge volatility of supply.
And from my understanding, that's what the Volcanic Energy Company is doing initially is solar and wind.
I heard that. And the name is like volcanic, so I was like expecting, okay, it's going to be volcanic only. And I learned that it's like first wind and solar. I'm like, good luck with that. Because the ROIs and all of that, so far as I know, they don't match up very much.
Yeah.
Because to run it 24/7 in batteries, which are extremely expensive today, so going this direction, I know maybe there are some substitutes.
And with the cost of the miners, does it make sense to just like only run them half the time, or then you have miners sitting idly and it doesn't matter even if your energy is cheap the rest of the time?
You want to run it 120% of the time because of the difficulties going so fast up that you just don't want to do this 50%. Like it doesn't even need to pay off, or like it can not pay off the miners if you're running them like 50% of the time. I wouldn't do that. Or you need to buy like super cheap equipment.
Yeah.
Which, maybe you have a great deal with a manufacturer. So maybe in that case.
Interesting.
So, but I would definitely love to learn more about like the intricacies of that, like how they have it calculated and what deals they have. But I hope they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I do know they have brought on, a lot of hydropower recently, like I was saying, and they have the volcanic. So
hydro is great. I mean, in Paraguay, it's 100% hydro. There's the third largest power plant in the world, which basically is the first one in the world in terms of produced electricity. It's a massive project, insanely huge. Imagine that the one that we have, the small one in Slovakia, that was like less than a megawatt. This is like 14,000 megawatts. So it's 14,000 of these small biogas power plants. It's insane capacity. So that's powering basically almost the whole Paraguay. And hydro is stable. That's excellent. And Paraguay, the benefit of Paraguay is that Paraguay is the largest seller of electricity in the world. So they are selling 40% of electricity to Brazil and Argentina. So that's why they have a motivation to bring
pretty
miners
cheap
in.
Rates too. They're not getting that much.
The Brazil is buying for like less than 2 cents.
Yeah.
So they're actually buying lower than the production price. So Brazil is very happy for that. And that's why Paraguay is motivated to have miners inside, because they can sell them for a higher price in home and get taxes and get everything, people employed. So that's why Paraguay is very interesting in this setup. Is like they as a government kind of support that, right? They see benefit of some new and larger consumers of electricity.
And yet they haven't really been super Bitcoin friendly, have they?
No, not that much. Actually, people would expect that that's like a super Bitcoin friendly thing, but the government in power is still left leaning in a sense. Although like they are educating themselves, and there are a lot of amazing people. Our partners, Penguin Infrastructure, they're doing an amazing job in like educating people about what Bitcoin is and how it can help out. So maybe Samsung can go and just do something there. But so far, it's people would expect that it's better suited for Bitcoin, but it's still in development.
Okay. That makes sense. So is that still the long-term plan, that the mining operations will be able to keep funding Amity Age, or is that you're still looking for the business model, or do you guys take donations, or how does that all come together right now?
Yeah,
currently?
so we take donations, kind of small ones. Like the biggest donations that we got were basically in terms of mining, which is funny because when people saw what we are doing in Roatan and they visited our classes, they were like, guys, I love what you're doing. How can we support? And I told them like, okay, you can donate to us and pay for a kid on Roatan to go through Bitcoin diploma. Or if you want to kind of regularly donate to us, like you can buy machines and host them with us. And you are mining Bitcoin, and a fraction of the electricity that we are charging you goes immediately to education. And they were like, excellent. So they bought machines from us. They're mining with us, and this is kind of what's helping us on a regular basis. Okay. So that's kind of the idea how the mining is helping the education, and the education is also doing the proof of work of like, we are really doing that and not just talking about it. If it's a long-term thing, I spoke with some really big miners, like very big names like Marathon or different ones. They are going in such a fast pace that they are basically creating the difficulty, and for them it doesn't matter that much as for us, the small guys. So first of all, our goal is to survive the halving. That's the biggest thing right now. And
you have to make a decision at that time, hey, we should shut down our miners till things balance out, or
maybe nobody knows. Like we have very efficient miners. Basically, we are running the hydro machines from Bitmain, which are like very efficient, like 20 joules per terahash. So that's like a very good hardware that we have. So we might not be switching off, or we might not need to switch off at the halving, but we are kind of getting ready to do it for a couple of weeks. We also tell our clients that, guys, get ready. This really might happen. So in the long term, my ideal vision is that the academy itself can sustain itself. That will be the business model. And we also are exploring the kind of the OTC market a bit, because our investor owns an OTC desk in Europe, and he's a very early Bitcoiner. And so he has experience there. And on the Roatan,
like as far as opening some type of exchange in Roatan?
I mean, not exactly an exchange, but helping with facilitating transactions. So, for example, there are already a bunch of people that wants to buy properties with crypto, with Bitcoin. And the local guys, the Remax or the others, they don't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
So we can be in between, because we know what to do to help them out and to charge them some percentage. And we can do it maybe in Europe as well, in a sense. So this is some kind of like a second branch that we might this year explore that can sustain us as well. And
I know even in El Salvador, that's a huge need. There's lots of Bitcoiners coming in. They want to pay for the property in Bitcoin, but still there's a lot of Salvadorans that aren't ready to accept it. So
maybe we come to Salvador as well. It's just one short flight away.
Exactly. You guys are next door neighbors.
That's true. So this is kind of like the idea that we have in mind in the long term, and but again, ideally, academy itself. What I figured out during my education journey is that once you educate for free, like people, they don't take it as something valuable to them. And they feel like if you're doing it for free, there must be some catch in it. And like, where's the catch? And there's a saying that I kind of like, and I resonate with that over time, is like, if people don't pay for education, they don't pay attention. And this applies for me as well. Like, I downloaded sometimes over torrent some online courses that normally cost hundreds or thousands of dollars, and I was like happy, like, while I get it for free, and I never watched the course. It just stayed on my hard drive forever. But once I paid for something, even like $100, I was just focused, and I just finished it, and I just did it. So I kind of like to pay for things, because I know that me, myself, I dedicate much more attention into it. And I see it in the events, like when we do a public event free of charge, some people say, yeah, I'm coming, or like we have 50 registrations and then maybe 10 people show up because, I don't know, a bad weather or he was tired or whatever. But when we would charge like $5, suddenly the show up rate is like 90%. So this money involved in education like changes perspective so much. So I want to figure out a way how we can give scholarships to people who really want, but they cannot afford.
Yeah.
But I want people to appreciate the value that we are giving out, and they should see the value in that. And yeah, so this is kind of the way we would like to go.
I think that's the thing that most nonprofits, including the work that we do, you wrestle with, because it's true. When you give something to people, they, a lot of times they become entitled, or they don't value it. But then a lot of times they're not in position to be able to afford to pay. Yeah. And so it's finding those creative ways so that they have skin in the game.
Yeah. And you're fighting with yourself as well, because one side of you is telling you like you would like to spread it to everywhere. Like if the money is a problem, just I will do it for free. But the other party is telling you, okay, but you need to sustain yourself to make it long lasting. And then you're also not doing the job for that person because they're not going to value it that much.
Yeah.
This is actually interesting. There's Alan Jackson. I don't know, maybe you met him. He was here in Salvador as well. He's maybe in his 60s, 50s, 60s, private jet pilot, amazing guy, Bitcoiner, Harley driver, Harley Bitcoin, amazing guy. And he visited us in Roatan, and we had like a chat about onboarding Bitcoiners, onboarding business and paying with Bitcoin. And what he's doing, I love the strategy, and we are doing it in Roatan and everywhere else, is that if the business doesn't want to accept yet, okay, no problem. We are tipping in Bitcoin. So we say that we only give tips in Bitcoin. But we're not doing it in a way that we are that it seems that we want to spend the Bitcoin and get rid of it, because then people are like, if Bitcoin is that good as you're saying, why are you spending that? Like, just keep it, right? So what he's doing is like, you did such a good service to the bartender, like you did such a good service that I'm willing to spend my precious Bitcoin and give you the best money that I think that is. And this like changed perspective a lot. And this is what I feel in like the free education as well. Like when everything is for free, people are like, okay, so if Bitcoin is so valuable and the knowledge is valuable, like where's the catch? So this is also, that what connects to it.
So I'm curious so this didn't start in Roatan.
Nope. We started 3 years ago. I'm doing Bitcoin education for 6 years. Full-time, maybe 4 or 5. And Roatan started like a year ago.
Okay. So tell me how that happened, because I think you're spending a good portion of your time now in Roatan. Yeah,
right? I'm like 50-50 between Slovakia and Roatan, and maybe switching a little bit more to Roatan over time, because I'm a sailor for 20 years. I love to be around water, and that's the place where you want to be when you want to sailing. So how I ended up there, going there for the first time was our mining client just sent me a message that, Dusan, you need to come here. I'm like, okay, where are you? And he started to send me pictures of his family on the beach, and there are palms and beautiful water. I'm like, okay, what is that place? It's Roatan, and you just need to come. I'm like, okay, where it is? Is it Africa? Is it Asia? And then I checked like Caribbean, perfect. And then I checked, okay, it belongs to Honduras. And Honduras is a kind of a dangerous country. I'm like, Robert, are you okay there? He was like, it's perfect. It's super safe. Come. And what he told me, what made me to come there is like, there is a Czech village here. I'm like, okay, what are the Czechs? What the hell are the Czechs doing in Roatan? I'm from Slovakia. We used to be one nation before, Czechoslovakia. And I was like, okay, the Czechs they can get anywhere. They're crazy guys. But Honduras, like what? So the funny thing is that what I found out after that, Czechs are the biggest beer drinkers in the world per capita.
Yep.
And of course, them being on Roatan has something to do with beer, because there was an agreement, like the Honduras government, somehow they wanted to have a Czech brewery in Honduras. And there was one Czech guy that was crazy enough to take a chance, to take the challenge, and he built a Czech brewery on Roatan. So he dig like 100 meters down, make like to find the water good enough for a beer. And he built a brewery. They started to brew a beer 15 years ago. And then they were like selling across Central America. And after 3 years...
that seems like, on an island, usually everything's more expensive. You have logistical issues. That seems like a crazy place to open a brewery.
Exactly. And he was crazy enough. He's a kind of a famous artist in New York. He's living in New York right now. And he's kind of famous painter there. So he was a crazy guy. Okay, let's do a brewery. And he did it. He was like exporting around. And then some big brand came to Roatan and they dumped him with the prices, so they need to close down. So after many years, after like 3-4 years, they closed down the brewery. And the next thing he did, he built a replica of a black pearl. So he was crazy enough to go to Britain to find a plans of a black pearl of the real ship. And he built a replica of it on Roatan. So it was the biggest pirate ship in Caribbean that was kind of taking tourists and stuff. Amazing stuff. Then the ship was, I think it was stolen, broken, so there was some bad story to it. And then the Czechs stayed there, and they were like, "Okay, what are we gonna do here?" And they were very good at building stuff. They were like very handy. So they started to build houses, and they built a Czech village. So right now, the Czechs are the third largest community on Roatan. There is a village of like 60 houses on Roatan. And there are
Is it like Czech style architecture, or they built more like the
local style? Okay. Local style. But the most of the houses were built by Czechs. And they have even Czech hospoda, which is the Czech pub there. And every Tuesday, there is the founder of this village playing on a guitar Czech songs, and people are like having fun and drinking beer. It's like, what? So I was like, okay, I need to see this thing. So we came last year in 2022 in March, first time to Roatan. And for 12 days, we were just roaming around, enjoying the place. And I just fell in love with the people, with the vibe, with everything. And 2 days before we were leaving Roatan, I was just scrolling Twitter, and there was something like a Prospera summit happening, like a crypto Bitcoin-friendly jurisdiction. I'm like, what is this place? And I saw many of these Satoshi's islands and these scam rug pools and stuff. I was like very skeptical. It seems very futuristic, but I was like, okay, let's check it out. I'm here, nothing to lose. So I was really expecting, 5 people on the beach under a tent with a beer, having fun and like cheering for liberty. And I came there and I was blown away. There was a huge building, beautiful architecture, a co-working space, and 60 people mingling around. There was a place where a factory was kind of coming up, a huge like 14-story building, residential. I'm like, okay, this is not only on paper, it's like a real thing happening. And I met people like very like OG Bitcoiners there. There was a guy who ran the first online radio show that talked about Bitcoin in the world in 2010. And he had Gavin Andreessen there talking about Bitcoin. And it is said that show motivated Roger Ver to get into Bitcoin even. So very, very old OG stuff.
Yeah.
So we chatted about Bitcoin. I was like, oh my God, so these people around, very interesting, from all around the world. So we had the opportunity to present some ideas that we would like to develop on Roatan. And at the time I had like this idea of Bitcoin Academy. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. So I told about the idea of Bitcoin Academy, and the guy in the first row was sitting there and said like, I like the idea, we would love to have it here on Roatan. It would make sense here. And so Dusan, like, what are you doing afternoon? And I was like, I'm going to snorkel with my girlfriend. Okay. He was like, okay, before you go snorkel with your girlfriend, let me take you to a building. If you like it, you can have it from July. You can start to build your academy there, and you can name your rent. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And he drove me to the highest viewpoint of Roatan, which is this building.
One.
Yeah, if you go one back. So this is the highest viewpoint. It's 360-degree view of the whole island. You see the both sides. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful place. It used to be a restaurant before. And when we were taking over, it was a Montessori school. But the kids were growing up in numbers. They needed a larger space. So they were moving away, and this place was available. I was like, okay, so that's a challenge. So I was talking with my girlfriend, like, should we do it? It's a new chapter. It's like completely is going to change our lives. But it's a huge opportunity, to be with a place. And the Prospera is actually a jurisdiction that has Bitcoin as a legal tender. You can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. And right now, from last week, is the first jurisdiction in the world where you can do Bitcoin as unit of account.
Yeah.
So you can actually...
I saw that.
Man, it's crazy. And we're like pushing hard to do it.
Even in El Salvador, you still have to put things in dollar terms. Yeah,
but there in Prospera, you can
have it in Bitcoin
so
only.
So that's like the last frontier.
Yeah.
Suddenly you can run a whole business on Bitcoin. And nobody just telling you, oh, you need to calculate to dollars.
Yeah.
And no, just fuck it, just Bitcoin only. So I'm super excited about like Prospera in general as a project, as a free private city, and maybe we get to it like what it is. But just this vibe of people coming in and they want to build stuff, they want to explore the opportunities. So we took over the building and we started to build the academy. So this is one of the the first Bitcoin diploma that we did, developed here in El Salvador. So we were one of the first countries running Bitcoin diploma outside. Well,
and that's the one that me, Premier Bitcoin, developed.
Exactly. So we took the same curriculum, and right now running maybe like fifth graduation already.
Okay.
This is the Bitcoin run we did. So we're running from the beach all the way to the Bitcoin sign, and we're doing like every Wednesday. So taking people up and doing like a Bitcoin talk, talking about Bitcoin. This is one of the conferences that were held there. In the back, you can see the Bitcoin ATM. This is the only Bitcoin ATM on Roatan. So this is actually a way that helps us, pay the rent as well.
Yeah.
So people are buying, selling. It's a both way, and actually for selling we have 0%, which helps with merchants, because when we onboarding merchants, we tell them, guys, if you really need the cash, just come to the academy, and for 0% you can cash it out. So this helps with.
And do you have more people buying or selling?
Buying, definitely buying.
Buying, okay.
Yes.
So that works out nice.
Yeah, it works out, and sometimes we need to figure out what to do with the cash. So I'm motivating. Maybe I will even go like sub-0% to kind of give them discount, because I don't want to go to a bank and deposit.
Yeah.
I want to do it like without the banks.
And are people cashing out in lempiras or dollars?
Dollars. It's mostly dollars, and it's non-KYC as well.
Okay.
So it's perfect stuff. So this is the Bitcoin diplomas that we did. Susel, our teacher, she's teaching the Bitcoin in Spanish, because I'm not there yet. I'm still learning, so I can only do English. So this was amazing. It was like a second Bitcoin diploma on a school. So this is the first Bitcoin meetup that we did. So in the corner on the left, you see some Bitcoin devices, Lightning ATM and Lightning POS systems, bunch of stuff. And there in the audience is a guy who, you can see him there on the left, the bald guy. He was a neighbor of Laszlo Heinech, the guy who made a transaction of 10,000 Bitcoins for the pizzas. So they were living together, like next to each other, basically on the street. So super interesting people I met on the Roatan. It's pretty crazy.
Well, I love going back to the ATM. Because we saw that same thing here when we brought we kind of snuck the first ATM here in El Salvador in some extent. And we thought, because we're doing all this stuff with all these businesses and they'd want to cash out, that it'd be mostly people wanting to sell Bitcoin to get dollars. Mm-hmm. And then people just came out of the woodwork from everywhere that like wanted Bitcoin. And we'd see these kind of middle class, doctors or whatever from San Salvador driving down every week to buy $300 in Bitcoin. And
that's amazing.
So it was, because the fear before was like, if you introduce an ATM, it's going to suck Bitcoin out. But really, it was something that expanded the amount of Bitcoin circulating.
We see the same thing. Like I was also thinking like a lot of businesses will be selling, but we have one chain of cafeterias there on the island called Being Crazy. And the owner got so hooked to Bitcoin that he's buying like crazy all the time. And he's accepting. He thought his stuff how to accept tips. Yeah. So we have some really hardcore merchants that are like going full. There is
a lot of times they start wanting to sell, and then
exactly.
Then they switch around and they're like, no, I'll buy.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly. And sometimes I'm like, guys, like, leave the Bitcoin for the others as well. Come on, you're not the only one. So I'm topping up the ATM, and I'm like, Jesus. So there's some good turnout of we have like 60 businesses right now accepting, but we don't want to push more businesses because we want to kind of go hand in hand with people using Bitcoin.
The problem is if you go too fast on the businesses and there's not enough people spending, they're like, well, it's not worthwhile to keep our staff up to date and have the separate device, so you really do need to try to balance that.
Yeah, totally. There's a Bitcoin center in the night, so.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
and what an amazing
facility.
It's a beautiful place. And this is actually a very interesting place because this is the first thing you see when you're entering Prospera, this pristine bay resort. So when we were designing these things, I was sending it to Eric, who is the CEO of Prospera, and with like a fear in heart, like, will they accept that this huge Bitcoin logo? It's like 2 meters in diameter or more even. And because that's really the first thing you see when you're coming. And then he sent it to the president of Prospera, who is like a huge Bitcoin maxi, like a huge one. And he was like, we're fucking doing that. Like, we definitely want to have that Bitcoin there. So yeah, I'm super happy that we managed to put it there, and right now it's like marketing. So people entering, going in and out, just like it resonates with them, and they're asking. They stop by and ask like, what is Bitcoin, so we can educate them. And
yeah. So tell the audience. Some people have some familiarity with Prospera, but even me, I have a lot of questions. So give the rundown on what Prospera is, how it's able to exist kind of as a standalone entity within Honduras.
Very interesting thing, because Honduras allowed something called the ZEDE law, which is in translation like Zone of Economic Development and Employment. And it allowed these economic zones to exist, to come to existence, which basically the motivation of the government was, okay, if this place right now, we get taxes, like very low taxes of that place, but if you allow somebody to run that place in a private manner, set up their own rules, maybe they attract foreign capital, and 12% of the taxes earned there goes to Honduras. So that was one of the motivations: more employment, higher quality of living. So 3 of these ZEDEs exist
and
today.
they no longer have to really do anything there. Like they've turned over everything to this entity.
Exactly. Of course, the entity needs to buy the property legally from the owners.
Yeah.
So there's no expropriation possible. There's no like somebody comes like, I want this land, and then the government comes and like, okay, guys, sorry, this is taken. Nothing like that. And some people are still afraid today, the Hondurans, that Prospera or whichever other ZEDE will come and just take their land, which is not true. So 3 of these came into existence. Prospera is one of them. It's the biggest one. It's the one that really has the most, even capital, the dollar capital, but the mental and the HR capital as well. So,
and there was, from my understanding, there's some people that really believe in this from a philosophical perspective, and they've been willing to put their money into this to support it.
Yeah, so in terms of investments, Prospera attracted more than 100 million, I think, right now in dollar terms. One of the biggest investors are Pronomos Capital, which is run by Peter Thiel. So it's also run by Patrick Friedman, which is a grandson of Milton Friedman. So there's a lot of libertarians involved in that. And the founders actually, one is Eric, he's from Venezuela. The other is Gabriel Delgado from Guatemala. Gabriel's grandfather is the founder of the most famous libertarian university in the world in Guatemala, Francisco Marroquin University. You know that?
I'm very familiar with the university, but I always think it's crazy that it exists in Guatemala because it's very contrary to most of the society in Guatemala.
Yeah, so. That's true in a sense. So Gabriel, they both kind of had the same idea of the governance is one of the most important things in terms of prosperity, because once people are restricted to do free trade, to interact with each other because of regulations, there is so much potential that we even don't know how much is unrealized. Yeah. So if you unlock these regulations, suddenly there's so much opportunities. So they both had the idea to solve the problem of governance. And when they got together and they met together, they realized they have the same idea. So they were searching for a best place to start, and they realized there is this ZEDE law in Honduras. So they came and they figured it out. They started Prospera. The first initial talks and everything was like maybe 8 years ago. And then the groundbreak like maybe 2020 or 2018, I'm not sure. So the idea is that it's a free private city. So it's a city that's run privately, and basically to succeed, they need to treat you as a customer. The only way to opt in to the city, it's not the model that, they can somehow force you to do it. You need to really sign something called the Agreement of Coexistence. And this is super interesting because for me, that was one of these things that motivated me to stay, was like, once you sign the agreement.
And you sign this agreement as a person as a property owner?
As a person. As a person. So you can set up e-residency. That's the first level. It costs like $150 a year, so pretty okay.
And how does that interact with Honduran residency, and how does...
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. So if you want to stay long-term on Roatan or in general like around Prospera, you basically need to have also the Honduran residency because there's no
even
airport.
Even if you were say I'm never leaving Prospera, you'd still need to get Honduran
maybe if you really don't leave Prospera, maybe not, but you still need to go somehow into Prospera, and Prospera doesn't have own airport so far, so maybe later. So you still need to go through Honduras, basically. And when you sign this agreement as a physical person, there is also stated like what's the level of taxes, for example, which is pretty low. There are only 3 taxes. 1% for companies, sales tax, 5% for physical persons, 1% land tax, and 2.5% VAT, nothing else. And the interesting part of that is like if Prospera in future decides to raise the taxes, they don't apply to you because you sign an agreement between you and Prospera that says this is the tax regime. And for me, this was like super interesting because in Slovakia, new government comes, they change taxes. For example, right now they change the tax on crypto. They even increased it. It's 40%. So 40% of the profits you need to pay in taxes. That's insane. And imagine you come to a country because of also the tax regime or other stuff, and every 4 years it changes, and you're like, what the heck? So I was super surprised. Like, okay, here, if they change it, this applies for you, or you can sign a new agreement as well if you want, if it's better for you, but they cannot unilaterally one way change it for you. And I was like, this is how it should be working everywhere else. So this is just one part of like why Prospera was kind of for me like a very interesting experiment to really like dedicate my energy into. And the people I met around were very like builders, libertarians. We were chatting about Ayn Rand, about Atlas Shrugged for like 2 hours with Eric on our first meeting. We were sitting actually on the top of that building and chatting like 2 hours about these ideas. Yeah. Because I have a company in Slovakia named John Galt LLC. And one of the motivations why to name actually the city of Prospera on Roatan is named St. John's Bay. And the most motivational for that was John Galt from Atlas Shrugged. So we were like immediately connected on the value level. And it's like Prospera in general is a very like low time preference project. It's like just building the city, coming like ground up community. It's like it takes time, it takes resources. So and it's, as I said, it's still an experiment. So there is some tensions with the government, of course, because the socialist government doesn't like the capitalist approach.
That was my other thing I wanted to ask. How, when the ZEDs came into being, was it written in a way that makes it very difficult for them to undo it? Because my understanding, the current government, current president, she hates these zones. Yeah, so. She really hates that. Like she's, from my perspective, very socialist leaning, and she's pacting a bit with China as well, which I'm not a fan of. So the constitution of Honduras basically allows the ZS to exist even after the ZLO was cancelled last year. It prevents new ZS to come up, and there were like 7 or 8 other applications. So it would be very interesting to see how they would compete with each other. But no new can come up. And how many exist right now?
3.
3, okay.
3. And Prospera have 50 years of lifespan, at least, but 50 years is guaranteed. The others have 10 years. So 50 years is because they have some agreements that it was in the charter, like if you have these agreements with other countries and other countries, then you can have 50 years of freedom. Okay. So even right now, for Honduras to delete Prospera of existence, they would need to change their own charter and constitution, which is like very difficult actually in Honduras. And the current government doesn't have the political capital to do it anymore. So this seems that Prospera will live on. But as I always say, Honduras these are the guys with the guns. Prospera doesn't have their own army. So if the Honduras will kind of decide to do some mess, they can, but they will do a huge bad name to Honduras internationally.
And Roatan's dependent on tourism and foreign activity in general, so I'm sure they don't want a big black eye.
That's true. And the people, initially, they were like doing this marketing, like, oh, people don't want the ZS. But interestingly enough, there is a place called Crawfish Rock on the map, as you see. That's the village next to Prospera. Mm-hmm. And people initially were like very skeptical, like, oh, what is this place? And they're going to steal our land. But right now, like 50% of the village works in Prospera as a carpenters, gardeners, whatever works you can imagine. And they're actually fighting for Prospera to still be around because they give them jobs. They earn decent money. That's their first job they ever had sometimes. So even this narrative of like people doesn't want it doesn't hold true anymore, right? And the longer Prospera exists and do the proof of work, then people are really like, this is working. Like it's a good thing, right? So there you can see the Pristine Bay Resort, which is something that Prospera bought. It's like a resort for families, and you can come. There's like a beach club. Right now there's a big conference happening there called Vitalia, which is like people from the longevity community. So talking about how to live to see the last Bitcoin being mined. That's my goal actually, 2140. So there's a bunch of stuff happening right now in Prospera, and more people are coming in, figuring out like what is this place about. So I love to dedicate my energy into Bitcoin education, and doing it as well in a place where it's an experiment that can be very, very interesting and big in the future, and that plays around with Bitcoin as unit of account, Bitcoin as legal tender. So a lot of flexibility. Yeah. For me, that's like a place to spend some time.
So I'm curious just on some practical things. One, how many people are considered residents or citizens or whatever of Prospera, people who have signed that agreement? And then also just curious as to like the cost of properties and just the cost of living in general. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming Roatan being an island, things are not super cheap. So just curious for some perspective on that.
Got it. So Prospera right now, a couple of hundred people signed the agreements, and there are a bunch of people that are like e-residents but are not living inside of Prospera, and then there are people who are like living inside. So since Prospera is not a huge place right now,
so did the founders buy up a bunch of land initially, mm-hmm. and then they're selling off to people, or how does that work?
So the only way how you can buy land right now is like if you're a developer. So right now you cannot buy land as a physical person. You need to be a developer to build something of a sense. What you can buy is like accommodations, like or apartments right now. So there is the tower that's being finished in a month, in like February. You can buy already some apartments there, and ranging from like 80,000 to like maybe 200 to 50,000.
And you can pay in Bitcoin.
You can pay in Bitcoin. And there are already a couple of Bitcoiners I know that came, and after a week or two on Roatan, they bought a studio for Bitcoin.
Okay.
So that's pretty crazy. So you can already do that. But if you want to, Prospera is motivating developers to come and like, guys, this is the master plan. This is how we kind of imagine the place to be. Just help us to build it. Right, so that's what you can do right now, and the cost of living. Coming to Roatan, I was really expecting like, oh, it's okay, it's Honduras, it's gonna be kind of cheap, but it's not.
Yeah.
For me as a Slovak guy, and I would say maybe it's like 10-20% more expensive than in Slovakia. For U.S. citizens, it's a little bit cheaper, and in terms, for example, right now we are renting a 2-bedroom apartment. Yeah. 2 bedrooms, and we are paying like $900 a month or $1,000 a month plus energies. You can go for a lunch for $10-15. So that's roughly, for example, if you're earning like maybe $2,000, you can live quite well, right?
With them now allowing the denomination of things in sats, have you seen any businesses yet start to price in sats? Has that come yet?
It's super early. It's like 1 week old. And actually you need to apply. There is a period, for example, right now there is an application period till end of January where you apply for this upcoming accountant year to account in Bitcoin.
Okay.
So it's very fresh. It's actually Prospera. Let's do it. And they figure out the feedback and maybe they change something as well. So I would like to motivate Bitcoin companies or Bitcoiners who would like to have a company and denominate everything in sats and do the accountancy in sats just to apply, try it out and give feedback. And it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
So, they asked us like, okay, guys, so how many companies you think will come? I said like, I don't know, there are companies who account in Bitcoin or like would love to account, but they have also some dollar expenses and this and that. So they would need to kind of decide which way to go. So it's very fresh. It's very new. It's still an experiment as well. And we would like to see this year how it goes. I'm going to set up probably my company for that as well. so we can really explore ourselves and just have it firsthand experience.
So what percentages of the businesses in Prospera are accepting Bitcoin right now for...
In Prospera, almost all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And so far, there are like not so many businesses in Prospera. There are like these hotels, resorts, restaurants. For example, I'm paying for my car rental in Bitcoin, and this is the guy that works for Prospera as an architect. So I'm paying a lot of things on Bitcoin and Rattan. Like,
and has it spread to the surrounding areas at all, or is it
the Bitcoin accepting? Yeah. As you can see on the map, this is the whole Roatan. Basically, where the crawfish rock is, that's the Prospera part. And right now, as you see, the west end, there's like 24 businesses accepting Bitcoin. That's the most touristy place. They're the most cafeterias, restaurants, businesses. So the rest of the island is kind of like it's not very populated with businesses in general. So the west is the most one. So altogether like 60, but the majority is on the west, outside of Prospera, right? So most businesses accepting Bitcoin are outside of Prospera right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you see long term, like, is this where you're going to wind up living, or what's your goal with that?
I can see it kind of long term, although I like diversity in the sense that, for example, when I came after 5 months living in Roatan back to Slovakia, and I experienced being at 9 p.m. sitting next to a lake, sunset slowly going down, I was like, oh, that's beautiful. Or just going to a woods and just breathing the fresh air, kind of the cold air. I was like, oh, this is nice. So Slovakia has 4 seasons, and I like 4 seasons. Roatan is kind of the same weather all year long, although I love it. But this kind of diversity I like. So far, I cannot imagine not living full time on Roatan. I like flying around and coming back and forth. But having it as one of the main bases for me and my girlfriend, and late next year maybe our kid, definitely can imagine. My dad is going there for 3 months with his dog right now, flying through half of the world, because he was so moved and inspired by living there. Right now he'll be renting our little catamaran there for people, so doing some work to kind of feel that he's not only on the vacation, but he can work there. So it's going to be very exciting. I'm flying there in 2 days, so looking forward a lot, for how the dad will be doing.
No, I understand. Islands are beautiful, but like you said, you can't, sometimes I get tired of the beach here in El Salvador. It's warm and so occasionally we'll drive to the mountains in El Salvador where it's like cold at night, and so it's at least we can drive. But if you're on an island, it's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, exactly. There's not so many things that you can do there in these terms. So just being flexible and have the opportunity to go places. I think that's how I see myself at this moment.
Yeah.
And when we're gonna have a family, Diana would like to be more in Slovakia. Because she has support of the family there, and so probably maybe 6 months we're gonna stay in Slovakia. We will see. So it's very in the progress still. This year will be kind of a year where we're gonna figure out a bunch of stuff.
That makes sense. Is weather-wise, would you say it's similar to here in El Zonte?
Very similar. It's in terms of temperature, it's 26 to 30 all year long. The only thing that changes is humidity and rains. So we have also rainy seasons. But it's kind of windy place, which I love because I'm doing sailing, and that makes it not that
cools things off too.
Yeah, definitely. It's even though you're on the sun, you don't feel it. You're kind of chilled out. So the geography part, and it's a very safe place actually. It's a complete western part of Caribbean, which is the most secure part of the whole Caribbean in terms of hurricanes. So the last one they had there was 27 years ago. So super safe place. All the hurricanes sadly goes to Florida and Miami, and Roatan is kind of protected against that.
And as far as just physical safety on the island, I know Honduras as a country has, I think it's one of the highest murder rates in the world. They used to compete with El Salvador for that. They'd go back and forth. Now El Salvador is one of the safest. But is Roatan impacted by that, or is it kind of its own little micro?
It's a microcosm, definitely. It's that's why I was very afraid to go there, but you can walk in the night as well, no problem. There are areas that you wouldn't like to go in the night, of course, but since it's very dependent on tourism, it's very safe. Actually, I never had any bad encounter any time that I was there and that anybody that I know of. So
and English is pretty widely spoken.
Yeah. Since it used to be a British colony in 1800s, then British gave it to Honduras. Very well spoken, so you can go along with Spanish and English pretty well. What you can see here is the Bitcoin scuba shop, the diving center that we have in Prospera.
I remember hearing about this.
Oh yeah, so this is run by Emilio, who is an amazing Bitcoiner, a great maxi guy. So he's accepting Bitcoin, of course, for the dives and giving you 10% discount. He built this thing like 2 years ago, and he came up with an amazing idea to build a Satoshi's grave, a dive site called Satoshi's grave. He registered it originally officially in the Marine Park, so when you go diving there, it's like a proper thing. And if you go one step back, so that's Emilio right there, the dive master, and Anita on the right is our Bitcoin teacher. Right now she's long-term in US, but we still are in contact. And that's what you see down there. It's a treasure chest that we came together with. I bought it on Amazon, just put some bunch of stuff there, like old treasures, hardware wallets, old Bitcoin coins, and seed phrase, metal plates, and a bunch of stuff. So this was the journey when we were bringing the treasure chest down to the Satoshi's grave and to lock it up there. So, people sometimes when they go there, they can just open it up and see themselves what's inside. The interesting part of it, if you can scroll one more. So this is how it looks like. This is just the huge Bitcoin logo underneath with Satoshi quotes all around. That's the chest that we put in. We want to put some more artifacts. So if you're Bitcoiners, you want to send us something to put into Satoshi's grave.
We need some Bitcoin Beach.
Merch. Definitely. So I can take in 2 days something with me and just put it there. The thing is, like, maybe we need to figure out like a metal chest, because the wooden one, like, it was there like 6 months and the wood kind of was very weak. So this is how, and you need to clean it frequently because just the water just settles. Imagine. And what happened, like, after 6 months of leaving the chest there, we were kind of ready to get it out and see like what's inside and like how it survived. So I remember Anita was having like this underwater camera and taking video of that, and I was just bringing it up, and she just signaled me like, open it up, and I will just look inside what is there. So I opened it up, and suddenly there was like the huge black cloud coming out of it. I had no idea what it was. Probably it was like a rotten wood or something, but we were joking like this was like the spirit of Satoshi leaving the chest. But it was so unexpected, like it's so insane. I don't know, like what was it? But like it was like 2-3 meters around us and like all the black stuff around. I was like, what the fuck, So right now we need to figure out a stronger and larger chest and just put the merge there and just, play with that a little bit more.
I love that though. That's fun.
Kind of, we are having fun around the island. The island, I didn't mention it. It's one of the most famous pirate islands in the world, in the Caribbean. And the Captain Henry Morgan, the one that's on the Morgan rum, Captain Morgan rum bottle, real person, he used to have a base there on Roatan, and he built a wall to kind of shoot the Spanish ships. And the wall is still there till this day. So really? There is, and imagine this, there's an island that belonged to him, like a little island. The wall is still there. You can go and snorkel around, beautiful snorkeling, amazing reef. And you just see the wall that, Henry Morgan built. And that's the best protected area. Some people say that's the best protected bay in the whole Caribbean. It's called Port Royal. So the pirates were hiding there because there's only one way inside of the channel. So they were basically shooting the Spanish ships from all of the sides because it was the only way to get there. Yeah. And so till this day, there should be like 2 or 3 pirate treasure chests still hidden on the island that nobody found yet. And so some people come there every year, searching in the caves because there's a lot of caves on the island. And one day we were just walking across on a hike across the woods, and we found an old bottles, like pirate rum bottles. They were like very thick glass, black glass that nobody does today. And I spoke with the locals, and they told me like, yeah, these are the old bottles from like the 1800s. I'm like, what? So I took the shards with me, and I have it as a gift, as a souvenir. So there's a lot of pirate history. You can speak with the locals. For example, our marketing girl, Ariana, she's the descendant of a pirate. She's the Captain Dixon, very, very famous pirate Dixon. She's Ariana Dixon, and it's like her grandfather was this pirate. And in their family, actually, it's said that there should be, on their land, they have a big land on Roatan, there should be a pirate treasure somewhere. But her father told all the kids that they shouldn't look for it, but because it might be cursed and stuff. I'm like, tell me where it is, give me a shovel, and I just go. I don't care about the curse. So, it's this piracy also kind of is something that inspires me and attracts me to Roatan, because it gives you the feeling of freedom and rebellion against this establishment in a sense. So that's like all these elements kind of made me like, this might be a nice place to stay for some time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good note to wrap up on, unless there's something that you wanted to talk about that we missed.
What we missed, we talked about the Educators Academy, the mining, the education, Bitcoin Coffee Roatan, not grown on Roatan, but in Honduras, and you can pay for it with Bitcoin, so you can get it in our Bitcoin Academy. So just to say, I would like Bitcoiners to follow our education journey.
Yeah.
If somebody's interested, this is what we mentioned in the beginning. The Educators Academy is a project that I would love to spread all around the world. This is how I would like to contribute a little bit into the Bitcoin. And right now we already have plans to do it in Hungary, in Paraguay. So if there are communities or countries or local Bitcoin economies that would like to do it, they can write us on MTH on Twitter. And we would like to create a plan of where we can go and just where can we deliver that. And later on, we want to open source the materials. We want to teach other teachers how to teach that. So we want to kind of, something like MePrimer is doing, just multiplying itself with this nodes structure, something like that we would like to do with this Educate the Educators. And that's where I feel I have my passion right now the most, and I want to dedicate 2024 to developing that program.
And if people want to donate to this, you said it's not the primary driver, but people can donate to. Would that be through the Twitter page, MAH, or what would be
Twitter,
the best?
We have a link on our Twitter page to Geyser Fund, where people can donate in the Geyser Fund directly. Awesome. And I would be grateful for that.
And what about you? Where can they follow you on Twitter?
My Twitter handle is Dusan _Matuska, which is my surname. So you can find me there, and just Twitter is the best connection to have, and then maybe we move to Signal or wherever, but Twitter is the good one. And if people are interested in coming to visit you guys, is that possible? And definitely. This year we started to do a project called Bitcoin Experience Tours, or how we call it Bitcoin Pirate Tours, where people can come to the island and we show them the best places on Roatan. We go to Bitcoin places, we support the local economies, we onboard new bartenders and cashiers. So we piloted last year in September, it was amazing. And this year from February till April, we have some open spots. So if they go to mth.com/tours, they can learn more about that and just come as a friends, as a couple. It's like maximum 12 people, so it's not like huge. Yeah. And 10 days on Roatan in a Bitcoin paradise. No, that sounds amazing. I might have to look into that. Get away with my wife for a little bit. Definitely come back, Mike. Thanks. Awesome. Well, I appreciate so much you being willing to come here to El Salvador to lead this course. Like I said, everybody just raved about it, and a lot of times they'll pull me aside afterwards. It wasn't worth it, but I didn't have a single one of those. All of them were like, "Oh yeah, no, this was amazing." So super happy. Your program, I think, is going to have a big impact on the world. So thank you for that, and we'll hopefully get you back here in another 6 months or something and get some updates. I'm coming actually in April. Are you coming for the halving party? Probably as well, and also for the Berlin's going to have some little conference there. I think they're going to do that related to that, because I just had Sean, who's leading the halving party. Okay. We did a podcast earlier today, and I know Berlin's doing an event kind of around that. So definitely coming, maybe bringing my dad, maybe bringing Diana to show her around, because this Roatan and the El Zonte kind of is something that I would like to more explore. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We'll look forward to it. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.